So the dog that caught the car, it's an interesting image. I'm not sure where I heard that. It's not original with me, but it's an interesting idea, right? I mean, dogs used to, I don't know if they do anymore, hopefully not, but they used to chase cars, right? And what happens when the dog catches the car? Well, if you take that image, that metaphor, you can apply it to what happens when you get what you want, right? I mean, most people get into some kind of either therapeutic work or coaching work because they don't like what they have. They don't like the relationship they're in, the career they're in, whatever. Okay. And so the work initially starts with what you don't want. And in terms of working with dreams, it very quickly moves into okay, if you don't want that, what do you want? And there's a whole process of discovering what you do want. And once you figure that out, then there's the process of whether or not this is possible for you to have. And all of the reasons that it has not been possible to this point in your life come up. And they are generally strategies that you've adopted for very good reason. And I'll probably do another video at some point on this idea of an inner critic, which I think is a really bad idea. There is nothing that you have done in terms of developing a kind of behavior and viewing the world that wasn't done out of some sense of self-preservation, some sense of self-love that you didn't want to go crazy and you didn't want to get harmed in some way. And so you develop various strategies, usually as a kid, sometimes later as an adult. And those strategies work for a while and then they don't. And that's the process you go through as you start paying attention to your dreams. Okay, but let's fast forward to the point where you all of a sudden discover what it is you do want. And that's when the dog catches the car. Because not only do you figure out what you do want, but then you start to get what you want. And that's when, so, to put it one way, that's when the trouble starts. And by trouble, I don't mean that getting what you want is a bad thing. It's not, it's a great thing. And usually what you want is not, a red car or a big house or whatever. Maybe it is, but generally it's not. What you want to do is you want to feel better by being into the essence of who you are, being authentic to who you are. And that's a terrific feeling. And we have such a prohibition in this culture and around the world of just feeling good, just feeling good. It's not okay. You got to have a problem. You got to have something that you're sort of throwing yourself against, some brick wall or whatever, right? That we understand. Feeling good is somehow not really acceptable. It's kind of like sleeping 8 hours a night. People think there's something wrong with you if you sleep 8 hours a night. You must be lazy or something. Or how do you get to do that? Because I can't sleep more than 6. Okay, that I can, but other people can't. All right. So the problem starts when you get what you want because it does not fit very well into the culture. Now, I'm recording this on October 30th in the United States. And this will go up on my YouTube channel and stay there. So I'll be stuck with what I'm about to say to you. My sense is that the kind of people who watch these videos, in terms of the election that's going to take place on the 3rd, everybody's going to get what they want, right? Seems very clear to me, having known Donald Trump for 40 years as a New Yorker, that this guy is doing what he always does, which is fail. He stumbled into the presidency for a number of reasons, and he is going to stumble out because of who he is. And I don't think we're going to have to wait. Now, I could be totally wrong, but I'm not alone. There's a guy named Charlie Cook who does something called the Cook Political Report, who thinks the same thing. What will that mean? That will mean that the majority of the United States, population of the United States, got what they wanted. So we can look at that political situation, or we can look at you as an individual in this culture. You got what you wanted. Now what? And it's the now what that really is the main purpose of the kind of work I do. It's not just that you get something. The getting something or getting to a place where you feel good puts you at the starting line, because that means you are in a place to expand exponentially who you are. You know, one of the basic themes of the work I do really comes from the Irish philosophers, which is that the soul is not in the body is in the soul. It's an idea that you find in a lot of esoteric and spiritual teachings, that this body that we are in is not the essence of who we are. It's an aspect of who we are. It's a physical presence of who we are. And when you get on the road of discovery of who you really are, it's fascinating. You could spend 30 lifetimes, and some people would argue you do spend 30 lifetimes discovering who you are. It's the beginning of the process when you get what you want, when you get the career you want, when you get in the relationship you want, when you get into the intellectual space that resonates with you. That's just the starting line, okay? And I think in terms of the work I do now versus the kind of work I did as a therapist, and this is my experience, I'm not saying this is everybody's experience who's in this profession, is usually the work would culminate in somebody getting what they wanted, in solving a problem, all right? That's not how my work ends now. That's really where my work begins. It may take a little while to get there, but that's where it really starts. And I always say to my clients, you know, it's always amazing to me that somebody like Serena Williams has a coach. I mean, in her prime, she's unstoppable. I mean, the best in the game, right? What do you need a coach for? Because you want to get better and better and better and better. And that's the point here. It's like when the dog catches the car, there he sits, there's the car. Now what, right? And I think we are in that place increasingly, certainly culturally, politically, economically. We are at a place where we've gotten a whole bunch of information this year. It hasn't been pleasant. It is not going away in terms of this virus, probably for another year, in terms of us having to cope with it. But we've come through a big chunk of becoming aware of how things work, politically, economically, socially, the whole 9 yards. We've gotten a bird's eye view of what's been going on. And it's very difficult. You know, I always say to people when they start working with their dreams, the further you get into it, the tougher it is to betray yourself, right? Because with this little rational mind, we can rationalize anything. We can make up all kinds of reasons why whatever is not going to happen, right? When you get into your dreams are not particularly concerned with what you think, what your ego is all about. They're concerned with the essence of who you are. And so if you pay attention to them and you really listen to the messages that they are giving you about how you're organizing your experience, then it gets tougher, you know? And I think that's where we are culturally as well. It's going to be tough to pretend that we can go back to the way it was 4 years ago or a year ago. Not going to happen. The dog caught the car. And now we got to figure out what to do with it. And that comes from a space that is not, I'm right, you're wrong. I've been telling you, probably getting sick of me talking about this, but it's the truth. We are not going to get anywhere if we replace one tyranny with another. This is the requirement, is that we step into our humanity, okay? And we understand what the other guy wants and needs. Doesn't mean he or she's going to get it, but at least we understand it and we can have a conversation. We can come to some conclusion where everybody gets something. And that's what happens when you get what you want. It's the starting line. And so it's going to be a very interesting year. I mean, this year has been, I guess interesting is not quite the right word. It's been catastrophic in many ways, but it has been the kind of catastrophe that destroys an old way of thinking, an old system. And what we are on the cusp of right now is, what do we do now? How do we create the kind of culture and the kind of individual experience that we want? Okay. How do we expand what we got? And that's going to be fascinating. And that is really, from my perspective, the nature of my work. It's, and I probably talked about this before, but what happens is when somebody decides that, say they want a different career and they actually get it, the requirement for the rest of their life, like their relationships and all those sorts of things, come to the fore as well. You don't get to sort of pick and choose where you get to expand and transform. You can start in a particular place, but then everything is required to change. So pay attention to your dreams. And I'll give you a little heads up. I'll do another video on this, but what I'm thinking of doing is taking the class that I used to teach in the coaching community and breaking it up into single classes that you'll have the opportunity to choose. Do you want to take this one or that one or whatever? And I want to also have a live component to that, in the sense of actually getting together with whatever group of people take it and doing some live work. So that'll be coming in December. Be a great Christmas present for somebody if you want, or a Christmas present to yourself. And I think the more that we can get involved in the fullness of who we are, the really fascinating experience we will have in the next year. So COVID is coming back. I mean, I live in New Mexico. We just canceled Halloween today. This is something we're going to have to deal with. It is not going away so fast. Consider the fact that it is probably a result of the fact that we have befouled the place that we live, and that it's not just in terms of the physical that we can see, but it also creates opportunities for all sorts of things to happen that are not going to be very pleasant. This is where we are. Doesn't mean it's where we have to stay. So stay safe, be well, and I look forward to the next couple of months of this year as we wrap it up, and next year, which I think is going to be quite extraordinary. Take care of yourselves.